In this segment, I'm going to show and introduce Gamecube RAM address hacking, made possible only with a ViperGC Extreme Gamecube mod chip. It's a lot like the NES RAM hacking and the ROM hacking I did in earlier episodes. Now you're going to have to install a chip into your Gamecube, and you're going to have to put in a special high-speed adapter board in the data port of your cube. Now this will let you tie your Gamecube into the USB port of a PC and do comparative address search and value search just like the NES was. Now the software is kind of poorly coded and it's still in beta, and this chip is still kind of hard to find, but if you really got a hard-on for doing ROM and RAM address hacking for any console, this is a real-time process. Now this is going to be a complicated process. I'm going to have to record a live feed from the screen captures of my desktop or my laptop, and I'm also going to have to record straight from the cube itself, and things might go out of sync a little bit, so don't bitch and complain, alright? This is the business end. This is the high-speed adapter. It's going to plug into your high-speed data port where the broadband adapter or modem would normally plug into. And this is going to allow us communications through the data bus. This ribbon cable feeds up and actually plugs into the mod chip itself, the ViperGC Extreme mod chip itself. Now this board over here does all of the communications and all the USB crap. Now this will simply plug into here like so. But what I don't like is how flimsy it is. This is really really easy to put a lot of stress and damage on. So what I've done was I took the actual original panel and I cut a notch away where the little mini USB adapter is. That way this will fit on nice and snug, and it'll also allow it so if my USB cable or whatever gets pulled, this isn't going to pull my Gamecube or off the shelf, or it won't damage the board or that fragile ribbon cable. Keeping in mind that if you do have one of these, don't make extra long USB cables. I've had a lot of problems running like 8 or 12 foot USB cables and using gender benders and such and not being able to communicate to the cube. Try to keep your cable as short as possible and get something that's well shielded. Start up Extreme Finder or the appropriate software on your PC side and then boot up your Gamecube. And make sure you have the appropriate drivers installed, because you have to understand that now your Gamecube is a USB device on your computer. So with the Cobra BIOS loaded, do not direct disk boot. Do not. That's the improper way of doing things. You have to tell the computer to start the game for you and initialize a client-host mode communication. We do this by clicking the Start Game button right over here. So go ahead and click Start Game, and the Gamecube will boot up. We're going to boot up Super Mario Sunshine. Why? Because it's already in my Gamecube and I didn't feel like switching out discs. We're going to use the same tactics and the same practices used for the NES ROM hacking and lobotomizing that I've done in the past. So we're just going to load up a random game, doesn't matter which one, and we're going to go ahead and start some searching. So I've loaded up Super Mario Sunshine, and Mario's just sitting around doing nothing. Now, just like with the NES, everything you see on screen has a memory address value. Now, we have a water level. If you look at the bottom right-hand corner, we have a set amount of water. Now, using the tools on screen here, we have the search initialization. Now, if you read over here, this is your general information box. This will tell you things that you need to know. Now, it says, Welcome to Extreme Finder 1.0. Use initialization search for search compare types, or search value for a specific value. Now, we're going to go and start the initialization. Every time you do a compare or you have to download the memory contents of your Gamecube RAM, your Gamecube will halt all processes and all operations for up to 45 seconds. So every time you have to make a compare, you're going to waste 45 seconds of your life. Reason being is there is a lot of information that needs to be downloaded from the Gamecube to your computer and then saved as a file. So keeping in mind that the more you search around, the longer it's going to take. So we have an initial dump success, and as if you probably noticed, while it was dumping the memory, it made a lot of god-horrible noises and seemed like it can crash. If your Gamecube lasts more than a minute or so, then in that state, you've probably crashed the cube. Now, we're going to go ahead and use some water. Just going to use water, just use some more, and then over here we have the compare types. We have less, greater than, equal to, not equal to, just like with the NES ROM hacking and the lobotomization. So, we've used some water, that memory address should be less, so we're going to make a compare. Again, the GameCube is going to halt operation. It's going to download the contents of the RAM from the cube to your computer, and this application is going to compare all of the values that were less than before, and then it'll give you appropriate information on screen. Looking at the display window, we can see that it's found 825,360 matches. So it wants to display 500 matches or less. So again, we're just going to use a little bit of water. You know, typical RAM address hacking. You know, change some values around, make some adjustments, make sure the memory values that you're looking for either change or do not change, and we're going to make another compare. Okay, now it only has 247,935. Now this is going to take me some time, so I'm just going to fast forward and get down to a decent amount of values that, you know, we can analyze. Okay, so it took me about 15 minutes and 3 GameCube crashes later. Now, when you're poking and prodding around memory addresses, you have to remember that you're most likely going to crash your GameCube. So if you either are fat and lazy, or you should keep your GameCube close by. Okay, so what I've done is using the equal, not equal, greater than, less than, blah 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 blah, just like with the NES ROM hacking and the RAM hacking. I found 2 memory addresses. Okay, now over here you have the read write hex view memory editor box, top right corner, and we're going to take a look at this memory address right here that ends with 21A6, and we're going to read the memory from that. Right now it's a value of 15. Now let's take this, now I know this is the water because I've been experimenting. We're going to drop this down to 0, 0. And you'll notice that there's this button right here, byte. A byte is a 2-character long hexadecimal value. Half word being 4 characters long, and a word being 8. So we're going to keep this down in the byte level for now. So we're going to write this memory value as 0, 0, and it should have drop the water value. Why isn't it working? Right memory. Up there it goes. I guess my video is just like because it's a stupid capture box. Okay, so we'll make this the maximum value at FF, and we're gonna write the memory, and boom, there you go. There's your water. Now, using these tactics and techniques, excuse me, you can actually find, you know, coins, lives, energy, this, that, and the other thing. This is just some of the basic stuff you can do. Now, a word of advice is when you're actually going through your memory addresses, click this button that says Save Match when you get down to a reasonable number, because if you don't, you have a good risk of crashing your GameCube and losing all of your work. Unfortunately, you can't load your search back in, but with this address box right here, you can manually look at the memory addresses. Now down here, you have a basic hex editor. And this will quite literally show you all of the hex values in both hex and in ASCII representation of what everything says. So, in the bottom of the screen you get these stupid DEBS alerts. Now normally you'd have to read everything in hex, but it just so happens that the values are actually in ASCII. Meaning, if you were to take this file using the Save Dump button right here in the middle left, you can actually save this to a text file and then just use a typical, you know, find ASCII string and search for known strings of text. Then you can find the memory addresses and actually edit those at the bottom. It's a difficult, lengthy process. I'm not going to get into that right now. So I'm going to do a little bit more poking around and see what else I can change in this game. I've done a bit of poking and prodding and searching, and I found the memory address for coins, and this is memory address 80578A63. When we read the memory, it'll confirm that it is in all zeros, as we have no coins. So I have verified that this is the coin, so we'll take this up to 10. Now keeping in mind that this is hexadecimal. So we're going to write our memory, and that's 16 coins. Let's bring it up to 20. Write the memory. 32 coins. There you go. This is the basic search techniques of compare, contrast, you know, get a coin, search for a value that's greater, lose a coin, search for less than. Basic principles and techniques that were explained in the NES ROM hacking segments. This can be applied to coins, health, timers, lives, God knows what the hell else. Now, Super Mario Sunshine is a very basic game, and it's got a lot to it, so let's move on to something a little bit more interesting. Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess. You can't have any kind of Nintendo console hacking without Super Mario and Legend of Zelda. So we've got Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess here, and I've actually gone off, this is well before when I was playing the game, I found some memory addresses already. And we're going to punch the values in, and I'm going to show you some of them. So memory address 80408162. We're going to read this. Right now it's got a value of 00. Now we're going to show this in half word, and if you notice that we have, this game uses more half words than bytes and full words. So we're going to drop this down to 00 and see what happens. Ah, crap. I guess that was our health, wasn't it? Yeah, that was, in fact, was our health. And here we are again. Okay, now we got 3 measly little hearts. We know, in fact, that this is going to be a full word value. So let's bring this up to hex 62. We're going to write memory. Ah, lots and lots of yummy health. Alright, let's see what happens if we bring this up to 70. I guess that's all I can have. Alright, well there's the memory address for health. Typical stuff. Alright, let's do rupees, which should be address 64. And we're going to read memory. Right now we have 04E8, which is 1256 decimal. And of course this is a half word format. Let's bring this down to, you know what, so it doesn't take forever and a day. We'll bring this down just to 0. We're going to write memory. There you go. There's rupees. Here we have the item list for Legend of Zelda. Now, right now I have the lantern selected, as you can see on screen. But it just so happens that every single one of these positions on screen of all of the items, each one of those has a memory address. Each one of those addresses has a value. So right now we're in the lantern address at 804081FD. And when we read the memory value, it's memory value 48. And I've done a lot of searching, and I mean a lot. This probably took me about 3 or 4 hours, and I'm still not even done. Now, I know value 48 is the lantern. But let's say we want the wooden sword. Now, I know that's value 3F, and we're going to write that. Lo and behold, wooden sword. Now we can take the wooden sword and equip it as if it were an item. Normally, you wouldn't be able to do that. Okay, you want the Dominion fishing rod, something else that you really can't get in this game just yet. Okay, memory address for value 4C. Now, of course, these are bytes, not words or half words. So we're going to write that, and the image doesn't change, but the text does. And when we equip it, if you notice the little Y button icon at the top, oh, that's an unequipable item, I guess. Nope, there's the Dominion rod. Okay, hey, you want the Master Sword? Normally you can't take the Master Sword and equip it. That should be memory value 49. Right memory. Master Sword. Now let's go ahead and equip it. There's our Master Sword. Now if we go in game and we try to use it, doesn't let us. It thinks that we have the Master Sword out, but it's a non-equipable item. It's supposed to be a weapon. So this goes to show that all your memory addresses in the game, just like in the NES, can be searched, poked, and prodded with a ViperGC Extreme Gamecube mod chip. Now it's a lot more difficult than this, but nonetheless, it is really fun. But there is one more feature that I really like about this chip. I mean, it does a lot more, but let's get into this next feature I want to explain. Because everything is in a client-host mode, the client being the GameCube and the host being the computer, we can initialize server sessions, so to speak. So they have something called Game Remote, which is kind of like, with a very piss-poor analogy, hacking the Matrix. What this allows you to do is, using command line utilities, modify memory addresses in real time, either read them or write them. And because you're reading and writing to specific memory addresses, it takes a lot less time. So I made a couple of batch files, or MS-BAT files. What this is I went into Notepad and I typed in the gameremote.exe and the command line options. The first thing you have to do is start the game by typing gameremote.exe space S. Normally you can do this into a command window, which I can show you now, or I can try to. gameremote.exe S. And this starts up the game. Now I'm going to jump over to the in-game, and I'm going to show you what the rest of these batch files do. Okay, now that we're in-game, you'll notice that I have things like arrows and waterbombs.bat, hearts.bat, and bombs and bomblings.bat. What these files will do is when I click on these batch files, the command line is gameremote.exe O, which means write to the memory address, and then the memory value in full word format. So if I click arrows and water bombs, this will completely refill all of my arrows and water bombs. This will refill all of my hearts, and this will refill all of my bomb and bomblings, which are items in the game. Which is pretty cool, because if anytime you're in the game and you're running around and you get attacked or you get hurt or anything like that, and you need some quick help, you don't have to go and really take your hands off the keyboard for too long. All you gotta do is, once you get hurt, boom, there it is. All my hearts are back. Hearts are back again. And there's really nothing the game can do about it, because you're poking and prodding memory contents that you shouldn't be. There we go. That's just the basics of GameCube RAM address hacking. There's a lot to it, there's a lot of discrepancies, and it can get very finicky and very picky. But it is something very fun to do if you can get a reliable stream connection to your GameCube. I have a lot of problems of the GameCube going out of sync with the PC, and things just completely failing and having to start over again. So, all I can say is if you have any interest in really nitty-gritty, dirty nails and bloody knuckle console hacking, this has got to be some of the toughest stuff I've ever seen.